Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. What's up, Powerlifter's Den family? Want to rep the podcast and look good while doing it? Check out my official merch store at plden.company.site. We've got tees, hoodies, beanies, hats, and more, and gear that'll keep you motivated in and out of the gym. Every purchase helps support me and the podcast and keeps the den growing strong. So whether you're hitting a heavy squat session or just lounging in style, we've got you covered. Head to plden.company.site and grab your merch today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on someone who has one of the, I think, top number 12 heaviest raw total of all time by females. So, Carina, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Carina Davis. You guys know me as Quadzilla619 on Instagram. And I do have a very high raw total, and it's been a few years.
Yeah, so we'll kind of get into that. We'll get into kind of the post career and kind of what you're up to nowadays. But before we do that, I'd like to get a background on everybody. So before you kind of got into powerlifting, what kind of got you involved in the fitness world?
I started lifting when I was 17. It was I want to be skinny thing. And I had like personal trainers and stuff, and they were always like, "You're so strong, like you should try, strength stuff." And I was like, "No, I just want to be skinny." And I got into personal training myself, and it was all about, society at that time was like, let's be skinny. Everybody's got to be skinny. You have to fit into this box. And so it was a struggle. And then I got into benching, and I realized early on I was benching 225 for reps, like casually. And like out the gate. So I 2016 I got meningitis and almost died, and that was my like turning point where I was like, you know what, I'm going to chase this dream of powerlifting. And I just started seeing it on social media because social media had started exploding, and I was like, you know what, I want to powerlift. And 11 months later from like the day that I almost died, I was on the platform for the first time, and I never looked back.
Yeah, so we'll get into that story a little bit, but kind of you mentioned early on benching 225 for plates. So I guess how many years before that the meningitis and getting on the platform were you like benching that much?
Like I don't know, 10 plus years.
And see, like that's crazy to me because if I saw some chick in the gym just repping out 225, I'd be like, you have to compete. Like, what are you doing? I'd like make the person compete. So
Yeah, but this was before it was big. Like this was, I'm in my 40s, so this was like, early 2000s, so powerlifting wasn't big. It was like equip lifting back then, and you had to know people, and I knew absolutely nobody. So I would just go to the commercial gyms, and I used to live by a Marine Corps base, and one of my friends was a Marine, and he was like, I have to take you on base, and I need you to bench. And so we would go on base, and I'd be like, I just benched yesterday. And he's like, oh, it's fine. Just, eat some more protein today. So I was benching 225 like 3 times a week. I was hitting an incline, and the guys on the base were just like, what the hell?
yeah, I mean, even like nowadays with the evolution of the sport and just how many more women are lifting, you still don't see it that often. So it was probably like a spectacle back then of like your friend bringing them onto the military base and out benching half the guys there. So
Yeah.
But
it was.
Yeah, from there. So tell us about the meningitis. Maybe give us a little bit about what that entails and what that is, and kind of how you were able to get through it.
Yeah, so it's basically like an infection of your brain and your spinal fluid. It just was like a common virus that hit me out of nowhere. I was actually in an abusive relationship at the time. It was about a year into my abusive relationship. And, like my immune system was down. So I just woke up in the middle of the night with like the worst headache of my life, went to the urgent care because Vicodin wasn't doing anything. A bunch of tests, later they were like, you have meningitis. And I ended up getting a PICC line into my bicep that they went through my bicep to my heart, and I was getting medicine 24/7 for a month. So I was out for a month just laying on the couch, not doing anything, getting weekly blood work because the medicine was like terrible for your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
And, they told me I was within 2 hours of dying if I hadn't come in sooner. it was an ordeal. I didn't really like realize it till I got home and everything had settled down and I was like, I almost died. So this month that I just sat on the couch, I was like rethinking my life and I was like, I want to power lift. I want to get better and I want to compete. Like I started watching Bama Burr's all her videos because I loved her. And I was like watching those and I was like, I want to be like her. I want to be strong. And that's like just what triggered that. And it took me a while to get better. My immune system was trashed for at least 6 months. I went back to the gym. As soon as I got the pick line out, I was back at the gym like 4 days later and I immediately picked up a new virus. I was back in the hospital. Like it was a battle for 6 months. I remember going to the gym with a mask on. I was sick the entire time and I had every test done ever. And they're like, you're fine. My immune system was just trash.
Yeah, and so is meningitis one of those things? Because I know there's tons of diseases and ailments out there that if you are relatively fit and have muscle mass, like you have a much better like outlook on it. Is that another case for this, or is this something where it's kind of luck of the draw?
It's kind of luck of the draw. And there's viral meningitis and there's bacterial. I had viral, which is a little less lethal. Bacterial will kill you almost like instantly. So I got lucky with the viral. It just took forever to get better, but it's luck of the draw. And yeah, I had lost a bunch of weight because I wasn't doing anything. So it was tough. It was definitely tough.
Yeah, and that's obviously not a battle that many people have to go through, especially in this world. A lot of the things that us powerlifters go through are kind of some like relationship stuff or family stuff or like injuries and stuff. So this is kind of a whole different like outlook to come
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, it was wild. It was definitely wild, but I knew I needed to fight. My son was 3 at the time, and I was like, "There's no way in hell I'm leaving this earth." So I knew I needed to fight, and I knew that I wanted to do something with my life, and I was like, "I'm just gonna fight it till the wheels fell off," and I did. So
Yeah, and I know you mentioned domestic abuse, and if you don't want to talk about that, we can kind of continue on. But if you are comfortable sharing, maybe tell us about how that kind of impacted your life.
yeah, that changed my life significantly. That was not my first, unfortunately, not my first domestic relationship, but was my last. I again, grew up in this society of you got to be skinny to be valued, to be loved. And I never really learned how to love myself. And so I searched for love through men and relationships. And um, I ended up with a narcissistic abuser who preyed on women who were insecure. And he saw that right away. And it took me 4 years to break free of that. But honestly, it changed my life in a good way because it hadn't that had happened, I wouldn't be as strong as I am today. It made me realize that I needed to make changes and heal within and learn to love myself regardless, which also powerlifting did too, because I ended up having to grow a bigger body, which is very hard to do at first. But um, learning how to love myself, learning how to set boundaries, keep boundaries, and all of that. Honestly, I mean, I've got PTSD and trust issues now, but who
Yeah.
doesn't, right?
Yeah, and the reason I kinda wanted to touch on that is because I think a lot of people, when you kinda like you're saying, like, obviously, yes, you don't want someone to go through that, but a lot of people that kinda make it through that come out a lot stronger and can kind of tell people how to get through that, and especially in the world of powerlifting, there's so many people that, like, we always say we're a bunch of misfits, and, like, it's one of those things where if you can kinda share your story and get people to understand where you're coming from and you learn that strength and can kinda help others with it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll share my story as uncomfortable or as embarrassing as it is. If it helps one person, it's worth it because it is embarrassing. Like you think, I allowed all this bullshit to happen to me. I allowed somebody to do all this horrible stuff to me for what? Because I wanted to be loved so bad. And I think about it, and yeah, it is embarrassing, but it's really not because it's human nature that we want to be loved, we want
Mhm.
to be accepted, we want to be in a relationship. So it's just a lot of things to learn, like that it's not embarrassing that you just have to learn how to set boundaries and you have to learn how to love yourself and you have to learn how to like see these things and be okay by yourself. So again, sharing my story is important for me because if it can help one person, then 100% worth it.
Yeah, and it kind of, and if you wanted to like almost translate it to powerlifting, like even people, for whether you've been doing it for years or you're new to the sport, like there's always some level of validation seeking as a competitor, whether it's from your peers or from the audience, from the judges, obviously with white lights and stuff. But it's kind of one of those things where you kind of need to learn like what it actually means to you, and that's why I think a lot of I like to ask a lot of people and like to talk about like people's why in powerlifting. I think that's more important than the validation, because at the end of the day we all want to hear like nice job, like great lift, things like that. But if you're not,
Yeah.
if you lose your why in the sport, that's where a lot of people get their burnout, that's where a lot of people stall out, that's where people start kind of spinning their gears around.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So that was a big reason for me to share my story on social media. And then my other why for powerlifting was to keep my legacy from my dad. My dad was a champion race car driver. He was amazing at what he did, the best of the best. And he was paralyzed from a race car accident in 2008. He passed away from his injuries in 2013. But I was like, I want to be great too. And I want to keep his legacy alive through mine. I want to share his story because it's just important to me because it's my dad. It matters to me. And it just became this like driving factor for me where I became obsessed and I wasn't going to stop until I got to the top.
Yeah, and
So the domestic violence and my dad's legacy, I was on a rampage.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's why I love hearing people's backgrounds, because we all come from different reasons why and things like that. Like a lot of us obviously come from sports backgrounds, and it's kind of like a, we have the competitive mindset, we want to continue, but we all have like a different why instead of kind of the reason, and I think they're a little bit separate. So, but kind of going into that from there, you mentioned Bama Burr was kind of one of your inspirations. What was something that she was doing that made you so enamored with powerlifting?
She didn't seem to care what anyone thought about her, and I liked that. And the other thing, this is so weird, but women will get it, is that she would pee on the platform, and I had realized that I had started having that problem too, and I was like so embarrassed at first, but I would see her do it, and I was like, okay, and I started researching it and realized that it's a common thing with women. So the fact that she didn't care, it happened to her. She was one of the greats, and also, yeah, she just didn't seem to care what anyone thought about her. And I liked her intensity because I was an intense rage lifter too. I loved that. So when I finally got to meet her, it was like the best day ever. And now we're like buddies, and I see her all the time, and we hug, and it's just like, the circle's complete.
Yeah, and honestly, that's another awesome thing about powerlifting is a lot of the times you end up getting to meet the people you looked up to. You get to become friends with them, and that's what makes this sport so different than other sports, because it's not like you could want to be like a pro baseball player, but you're stuck in the minor leagues or playing softball leagues with your friends, and you're never gonna meet like your Mookie Betts or your Derek Jeter. But you're like in powerlifting, you can meet the strongest person of all time.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, no, I've loved it. It was so cool. Like my third meet ever was the 2018 Kern. So it was like my first pro meet. And I got to meet like all these people that I looked up to. And I was just like this little baby lifter. And I outbenched everybody. I benched 314 like casually. And they were all like, "Who are you? Like, what the hell?" And so that's like I became friends with all of these people that I looked up to like at that moment. And I was just like, they're all like, "Oh, hi, I'm here."
Yeah, that's another thing too, is when you get to that level and you start going to these pro meets, it's like everyone has like imposter syndrome amongst each other, because everyone's kind of like fangirling over each other when you guys can just be friends the whole time.
Yeah. Yes, it still gets me when people like run up to me and I'm like, I'm just a mom who works full time, happens to go to the gym and happen to be strong, but
Yeah. And so kind of getting back to the timeline, like kind of before the current, and you mentioned like we're kind of sitting on the couch, kind of healing up, and had the itch for that. So how was that timeline from like when you first started to get that itch for powerlifting to when you got to the platform?
So I had meningitis was like the end of September 2016. I think by Christmas time was when I had finally kicked all the like crazy viruses, everything I had picked up, and I was just dealing with like sinus stuff every day. But by like Christmas time, I had started, okay, I'm gonna train seriously. And in that meantime, I had looked up and started researching how to program because I couldn't afford a coach at the time. And I was like, I know it's very different than personal training, which I did for a million years, but I had found like the 531 program, as everybody does when they start.
Yep.
And just started researching and learning that, and taught myself and coached myself all through my first three meets, actually. But from that time, from when I got meningitis to the first time I stepped on the platform, was 11 months. So I had about 9 months of like solid training where I went from just trying to be skinny to I'm not doing cardio anymore. I'm just doing SBD stuff, and that's it.
And
Um,
And so when you were kind of going through this initial process, like the so-called rookie year of every powerlifter's career is always like a lot of things that you learn. So what were some of the things that you maybe learned in that first few months with whether it's programming or the sport as a whole that you were kind of shocked?
well, I never took a deload. So that was wild. But I mean, when you're a beginner, it's fine. um, I think it was just learning that I needed to eat. Like that was the biggest thing. I had to eat to grow, and I had to eat carbs, which was wild from somebody who didn't eat very many carbs like their whole life.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. So I remember just being like, all right, I just need to eat. And I think between like my first and second meet, some like nutritionist had reached out and offered like free nutrition, guide as long as I promoted them or whatever. And I was like, sure. I remember them being like, you got to eat like 200 some carbs a day. And I was like, that's so many, which is not even anymore,
That's
but
lunch.
so that was a big like eye opener for me. And then I was like messing around playing like, should I try sumo? And I like pulled my groin like 3 weeks out from my meet because why wouldn't I do that? So that was fun. But a lot of it, yeah, it was a lot of just like learning to trust the process, learning to actually eat, and just kind of just, keep consistency. That was the other thing. You're doing the same thing over and over again, which I wasn't used to because it used to be like, you got to shock your muscles and shock your body. And it's like, no, you got to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and it's funny for me. I kind of was self-taught up until I think like 2023. So I was like 3 years on my own, and I didn't realize till probably at least a year and a half that preps are supposed to be more than like 4 weeks long. So I was like lifting 6 days a week, and then I was like, all right, we'll prep now. So we're gonna do 4 weeks for 4 days a week, and so I had no clue what I was doing. It kind of worked because obviously when you're young, if you just eat and train, you're gonna get stronger. And
Yeah.
I remember like everything kept going up, bench kept going up, squat kept going up. But my first meet ever, I pulled 585, and I didn't pull 600 until um April of 2024. And then I finally switched to sumo, and now I'm looking to pull like 800 in a few weeks. So it's just crazy.
Yep. It's amazing, like when you realize there's just little things you need to change, and it
Yeah.
makes all the difference. But you know,
And so when did you get your
sometimes you just gotta to live and learn.
yeah, and so when did you get your first coach?
Brandon Allen was my first coach, and that was 2018. Yeah, yeah, because my first meet was 2017. I did three meets without him. Then I met him in the summer of 2018. My ex was doing a bodybuilding show in Vegas, so we had gone out there, and I was talking to my friend, and I was like, I need to go squat or do something while we're there because we were there for like a week. And she's like, oh, go to Brandon Allen's gym. And I was like, yeah, right. And she's like, no, I'm friends with him. I'll message him. And I was like, okay. And I remember like looking at him thinking, oh my God, this is like amazing. And so she messaged him, and he followed me on Instagram, and I almost peed my pants because I was so and then I messaged him, and I was like, hey, can I come by your gym on such and such day? He's like, yeah, let me know. And I remember we went to his gym, and he was waiting there for me. And he used to not at his OG filthy power gym, the original one, he didn't like accept drop-ins at the time, but it was like as a favor. And so he was like just there waiting for me. He wasn't even working or training anyone. And I walked in, and he gave me this big hug. And I was like, oh my God, he's so nice. And I hit like a easy squat PR, like 440 or something, like unpeaked, just out the blue. And he was like, you're strong. And my ex was like, do you want to hire him? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, "Okay, well, then hire him." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna hire you." I remember telling him, "I want to be great. I want to be one of the best." And I'm sure he was going, "Okay." I'm sure I've a million times, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember getting my first program, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I think I had started with him, and I was like 11 weeks out from like the San Diego Fit Expo, so I like immediately just started prep with him.
Hmm.
It was like an obscene amount of work, which I'm so used to now, but I was like dying for the first like 2 weeks, and I will never forget that.
Yeah. And so what was it? What's it been like working with him, and like what are some of his like coaching styles that really resonate with you?
Um, I adore him, and I'm always gonna speak so highly of him, but he gave me so much tough love. Like, once he realized that I had the potential to be great and that I would do the work, the tough love was insane from him. Because in the beginning, I would bitch about like my bicep tendons being sore and stuff. Because I've always had such a big bench, and everything would be, you know, my bicep, I'd bench after squats, and they would just be, I would be dying. And I remember bitching one time, and he was like, "All right, well, drop the weight, you know, blah, blah, blah." And then it got to the point where I was, you know, coming up in the ranks, and I would bitch about something, and he'd be like, "I don't."
Yeah.
And I remember one time texting him. I was supposed to do like 5 or 6 singles at like 3:35 or something. My bicep tendons were on fire. And I texted him. I was like, "I just did one set and I'm dying." No response. And I was like, so then I felt really shitty, and I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do them." Like, I cried in between each set, and then I get back on the bench. I'd have like my buddy spot me. And remember him being like, are you sure?" Like, and I'm like, just spot me." And I got through all of them, and I texted him again, and I was like, "I finished everything. Sorry for being a bitch." He texted me back in the morning, and he was like, "I'm glad you figured it out." And I was like, so I will never forget that. But he taught me the tough love. I needed that because I wasn't gonna get to the top without that. And if men let me push them over, I will push them over. And so I needed that. I needed someone to push back, and I needed him to remind me of like, do you want to be great? Yeah, okay. Then shut up and do the work. His style is definitely like meathead. Like, it's not scientific. Like, get like a 3-minute video from him like explaining things, which is fine because not everybody needs that.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. It's like, here's your program, do your shit. If you need help, let me know. We'll fix it. Um, but again, like he knows, like, we got to the point where we just knew each other so well, and I could like pick out what I knew what my numbers were going to be the following week, and I knew what like my openers were going to be because I got to know him so well.
Yeah.
uh yeah, he scared me enough that it made me work harder, and I like
Yeah.
that.
And it's interesting because there's so many different like styles of coaching, and every coach has a good coach adapts to the athlete, obviously, and someone that like when you recognize like someone's gonna put in the work and stuff like that, it's like you sort of just you're friendly bullying them in a way of like, look, I'm not gonna put up with your bullshit. Like, you're gonna do this program because you said you wanted to be good, so do it. Now, if you get hurt, that's a different story. If you're a little sore, you're a little tired, or you didn't get enough sleep, that's your own fucking fault.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I would get like lectures with my program, like when I'd be in prep, and it'd be like, "Time to eat, time to sleep, time for your friends to go away. If they're friends, they'll be there when you come back." And I'm like, I mean, I would get like a long ass text, but that's, you know, he was one of the greats, and that's why I wanted him to coach me because he'd been where I wanted to go, and he knew what it took. And once he saw that I was going to do that, you know, he went all in, and I went all in too, and it was awesome. And you know, he's still my coach, and he'll be my coach till I am done setting foot on the platform.
Yeah, and so obviously you mentioned Bama Burr and Brendan Allen as some of your inspirations. Who else has kind of been part of your powerlifting journey, whether it's someone like a training partner or a close friend or just another person you looked up to?
I mean, definitely all my training partners. You know, I went through a couple different gyms, but I had one of my gyms, dead weights, closed now out in San Diego, but they closed the end of 2022. But my like last 2, 3 preps were there, and everyone there, I would like hit up the group chat and be like, "Hey guys, I have a huge squat Thursday night. I need everybody. And they would show up in their work clothes just to come cheer me on, to spot me. Like one, some of the guys would help me like pull weights off my bars when my back pump was crazy. Like I had everybody there was amazing. I had amazing training partners, and those were the people that got me through, and my close friends and stuff. But just there was nobody like crazy that like I idolized or anything in powerlifting, because it was just kind of like eyes forward, like I got shit to do.
Hmm.
But everyone that I've come across and like interacted with in powerlifting has changed my life in some small way, and it's been amazing, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's kind of the awesome part about the sport is it's 99% of them are good people, and the only reason you hear about the bad ones is because they get put on blast. Thank God. So,
Exactly.
but I do have an issue with your open pilots that I want to talk about, because I know you said you're kind of done competing full power, but there's a couple of these numbers that are very close to a couple other numbers. It's the squat is your best is 595, and then the bench is 397. So, I know you're chasing 400 with the bench only now, but I feel like you got to give that 600 squat a go.
My knees are done. I need double knee replacements. If I have a day where I don't have knee pain, it's one day out of the year at this point. So unfortunately, that's gone. And I was gonna go for 600 the day that I went for 595, but my um, my knee. I like the day before weigh-ins, I went to the airport. I was in Kansas City. It was the Pro Raw, and I went to pick up my friend from the airport, and I stepped off the curb, and my knee completely compressed, and I no longer could bend it or straighten it. So my other friend I'd called my chiropractor, and my other friend had flown in, and my chiropractor was like, he needs to pull it like out of the socket. Like, it's not going to hurt you. He's not going to pull your knee out like off of your body. He needs to pull like he's trying to. So I ended up having to like sit in a chair, have one friend hold me down, and he was like yanking until we got like the meniscus to pull apart. So I squatted 595 with like a super jacked up knee. So I got in my head about it, and they were like crazy on depth, which I've never been called on depth. And they just kept calling me like one side on depth. And it was like the side that my knee was fucked up. So I just got nervous, and I was like, I know I can hit 595, which you go 5 pounds is nothing, but 5 pounds can be everything.
Yeah.
So I just took the safe bet because there was money on the line. My total was on the line. I was injured. And so, and the 400 bench is not going to happen anymore either.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's just a being a nitpicky thing. Obviously they're incredible numbers and nothing to scoff at, and like I said before, it's still 12th all time as a total. But so kind of obviously we talked about the mental side of powerlifting and kind of getting through the disease and stuff, but as far as injury goes, have you had any kind of major setbacks with injuries throughout your career as well?
Oh yeah. 2020, I strained a quad tendon and dislocated my patella at the same time. So I was out for that was like August. I didn't get back on the platform till the following May. So that took me out for a while. That was a lot of injections into my knee, hyaluronic acid to build some cushion, because that's when I got an MRI, and I had no cartilage left already. And that was, 5, 6 years ago. So that was the start of the major knee pain, where I was in pain every single day. But came back from it, still obviously squatted the 595. And then I constantly knock my SI joint out of place, which is like the worst pain for me. I don't know why it hurts me so bad. I think it's just like how my body mechanics are. But that always sets me back a couple weeks. So I'd always have to, Brandon, thankfully, we got to the point where we like figured it out. And then I like tore something in my elbow right before the Pro Raw as well. So I had to take a token bench at 385 token. That was the worst pain in my elbow. It was like something like right here, and it was just shooting down my whole arm. I got a bunch of work done. It was to the point where I couldn't even bench 135, and I was crying.
Oh wow.
So we took the safe bet. I had gotten so much work done on my arm by then, so I was able to hit the 385. And then A few months after that, I ended up with a neck injury. I have no idea why, just old age and like past whiplash stuff. But all the discs in my neck compressed completely, and I literally couldn't turn my head. And then it turned into a pinched nerve, which took forever for me to find the right person to fix it, and it turned out to be nerve damage. So that's where my dreams of benching 400 went away.
Hmm.
I tried to come back from that. It took me a year of 3 times a week chiropractor, nerve specialists. I mean, I think I spent 10 grand in 2023
Oh wow.
trying to fix, because I was going to come back. I was going to come back and do full power. I was going to do one more and I was going to retire because I knew my knees were toast. And I started to make my comeback. My bench had started to improve. And then I could not keep my knees healthy. I was straining my patellas. Every squat session, I couldn't walk for weeks on end after an AMRAP. And one day I just texted Brandon and I said, I'm done. I'm just going to do bench only and see if I can hit 400 as a bench only without, the squat and everything else tiring me out. But that I came back with 358 last year, or the end of 2024. Last year I did a bench only in Vegas and I failed 363. I hit 360 in the gym, but it just wasn't there on meet day. And since then, I've decided that I'm tired of force feeding and I've dropped about 30 pounds. So bench has taken a huge hit, obviously, but
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. It was hard because it's been my identity for so long, and I've been the big bencher and the biggest bencher and female powerlifting in so long, um, that it just was like, all right. It got to the point where I'm just done, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that me and Shane Howell were talking about, like with his last meet. Like, obviously, he was super close to that 1,000 pull, and he wanted to get some numbers, but he was also just done. Like after the meet, like he didn't care about getting that number. Like he said he's not going to go do a deadlift only meet. And so, kind of when you get to that point, what are some of the things that you kind of go through as an athlete who kind of has to give up that kind of competitive side, or kind of understand that like you're past your prime in a way?
It's like grieving a loss, and you have to kind of grieve that, um, that time is over and you're not in your prime anymore, because it's so exciting and it's such an adrenaline rush, and everybody's like screaming and looking at you, and I was always the, everybody, oh, Quadzilla's here, so I had to like accept that that's not going to happen anymore and like be okay with that, which by the time that I was done, I was okay with all of that because I had already gotten involved in like hosting meets and refing, and so I'm heavily involved in powerlifting, which helps a lot. But it's definitely like you definitely have to grieve, because this sport, if you want to be great and to be one of the best, you have to be obsessed. And by obsessed, I mean you have to suck up the pain. You have to be willing to do anything necessary to get to the top. And I mean anything. And yeah, you have to sleep, eat, breathe, drink, feel, dream this shit, because otherwise, if you're not all in, you're not going to make it to the top. It's just that simple. Um, and I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed my social life. I sacrificed, going places, seeing the world, like doing stuff. I dating, like I literally was, gym was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So Wednesday night I was eating because I had a big squat on Thursday. So I was chilling. Sunday I was resting because I have deadlifts on Monday. Like I sacrificed everything. I literally would try to like schedule flights and things around like my training sessions, and it just got annoying, and it got to the point where I was like, all right.
Yeah, and it is a lot, and I think the word sacrifice is kind of almost an interesting word choice as in a way, because it's what we want to do, and it's like one of those things. And the thing that I think of currently is just like I like never drink anymore, and like I don't go out to the clubs on the weekend, and it's like when people you tell that to a normal person, they're like, why would you want to do that? And then, but like in my own shoes now, I'm like, I have absolutely no urge to go out and drink. Like I'd rather eat snacks and sleep so I can hit a big squat tomorrow. And like, so it's like in a way, like, yeah, it's a sacrifice on the surface, but it's at the same time, it's what you need to do because you want to do it.
Oh yeah, I have no regrets. None. If I could go back and, take the path of doing it all over again, going through all the injuries, going through everything I went through, or, seeing what happens if I didn't, I would 100% do it all over again. It was some of the greatest times of my life. And thankfully, I cherished every single moment of the platform of training. Like, I loved training. I loved dying through these training sessions. I loved when Brandon gave me these AMRAPs and I would just hit these obscene, 455 for 10 squat AMRAP with more in the tank. I just couldn't breathe. Like, I loved um, so I'm glad that I cherished it all, and I'm glad that I never hated it. I never did. I hated deadlifts, but I still enjoyed going and doing it because it was part of it. Um, so I'll never, ever, ever regret it. It was a great part of my life. It changed my life in so many ways for the positive. But I'm definitely enjoying like this new chapter of my life where like I'm doing the bare minimum in the gym. And I'm not mad about it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like one of those things where you earned that piece in a way.
Yeah, I'm like, I've been traveling. I bought a truck. I've been off-roading. I've been working more so I can pay for the off-road modifications on my truck. I've been living life in a different way. I was living life as a power lifter, and that was awesome. But now I'm living life in like this new wave. I'm still chasing these adrenaline rushes. Go
Yeah.
figure.
But what would you say to like a younger lifter, or like just anyone listening who might be actually in their prime right now? It's like, how would you tell them to kind of prepare to get like past that point? Like, what do you think someone should do? What do you think they should expect mentally? And like, just kind of, what would you give them advice for?
I mean, I would give different advice for different people. If it's somebody who wants to be great and has the potential to be great, I would tell them go all in, sacrifice it. It's only going to be a few years of sacrificing. You're going to have to sacrifice to be great. If it's somebody who just wants to lift for fun or this as a hobby, have fun. I mean, even if you're going to be great, the biggest thing is, yeah, have fun, enjoy it, cherish it because you're not going to be able to do it forever. The people that can do it for many years, I am impressed, and please give me your secrets because I can't. Yeah, just enjoy it, cherish it, have fun,
Yeah,
and
and it's one of those things where like these greats, you don't often see them around for that long. Like they'll be like 10, 10, 15 years, and like that's kind of rare, but you don't see these people like 20, 30 years in the sport and being at the top. There's a few exceptions in the like you got like Danny Tanahero and like Rebecca Roberts and things like that who've been competing forever and they're still doing it at a high level. But that's like what, two people, and I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head. So
oh yeah, I mean, I was literally pushing my limits to my body beyond what I ever thought I was capable of every single day. Limits of volume that I didn't think that I was capable. I was doing 5 by 5 squats in the mid 400s. Like, that's insane. So yeah, it's not something that honestly most people can do for a very long time, and I'm grateful that I got to do it for the amount that I did.
yeah, what do you think it takes for someone to be able to push their limits like that?
You have to be mentally strong. You have to be willing to be a little bit crazy because it's terrifying. I've been asked a lot, like, weren't you scared? Yeah. But you know what's cool? I like to do things scared because it's like you push the limits of your body and your mind, and then you succeed or you fail and you realize, well, I didn't die or it didn't like destroy my life. But if you succeed, you're like, I did that scared and I succeeded. Like, that's a cool feeling. So yeah, you have to be willing, you have to be obsessed, and you have to be willing to do it scared, and you have to be willing to push yourself more than what you think you can,
Yeah, and I
you know?
think one of the quotes that I've heard before that's kind of stuck with me. It's like if you're scared or nervous to do something, that means you probably should be doing it. And that's kind
Yeah.
of where it comes to like that's where you push your limits. That's where you either fail and you learn something or you succeed. Either way,
Oh,
you're getting a positive out of it.
oh, yeah. I used to go in the bathroom before like my top single before, in prep. My top single usually was like a PR. And I would go in the bathroom and I would look in the mirror and I would sit there and I would tell myself, like, come on, like, you want to be great? you need to go out there. Like you're strong, you're capable. And I'll tell my clients this too. I'll tell them I have a few that, I have a couple that are very capable of becoming great. And I have a couple that want to be great and have the heart. And I just tell them, you just do it. Like go in the mirror, look in the mirror and tell yourself, I can do this. I'm not scared. I'm strong. I'm capable. Like that self-positive talk does so much for you. And I would go in there and I would hype myself up and I would literally be like, you're that bitch. Go out there and fucking show them. And I would go out there and I would just crush it. And I would be on a high. I wouldn't even be able to sleep that night because I'd be on a high. I'm just like, I was so awesome.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things for me, it's like when I first started the sport, first of all, I never even thought I'd be doing equipped, but let alone never thought I'd be putting 1,000 on my back. And then one day you just get to that point of that goal, and you're like, well, first of all, the first thing you think is what's next, and that's just that powerlifter mindset. But then you realize you're like, oh, you just put in the work, and you don't always get rewarded, but at the same time you do, because you either come up short and you're like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be, or you're like, oh, okay, this is working. I'm gonna keep going till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. And honestly, I got to attempt the 402 bench one time in full power and I failed. I got it like halfway up and I was upset obviously, but I think back and I think how cool was it that I got to even attempt my highest dream. My highest dream was to bench 402 on the platform, and I got to attempt it. I didn't get it,
Yeah.
but I got to attempt it. Like, how many people get to even come close to their dreams, let alone attempt it?
Yeah, and like
Y
that's I like that too, because I remember the one of the things I was saying during the prep for when I squatted the 1,000, I was like, I just want to earn the right to have it as an attempt. If I miss it, I'm still okay with it, because one, I knew I'd like eventually get it one day, but unless I got hurt, blah 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 blah. But it's one of those things like, yeah, you earn the right to at least give it a shot, and that's kind of that matters more than the actual successful completion of the lift.
Oh, 100%, 100%, and I love that, I love that. You earn the right for it, and that's so true.
Yeah,
So
and so with kind of coaching nowadays and with your clients and that, what are some of the main things that I know you touched on a couple of points, but what are some of the main things that you kind of drill into your clients? Like what are some of the pillars of your coaching style?
it varies because I have so many different kinds of clients. I have some that just need like something to do and could care less if they PR and could care less if they try hard, and that's fine. I am not judging. I'm not here to be like, you gotta try hard. I need you to be obsessed. Like, if you just want to get on the platform because you want to and it's fun and it's a goal, cool. I'm like, cool, good job. Oh, I should have done more. You know what? You did great. But then I've got the couple that are like, I'm gonna be great, and I'm like, you do have the potential, and then I'm hard on them. Then comes out the Brandon Allen in me.
Yeah.
So it just depends on everybody, but I always drill into them like recovery, sleep, eat. I'll tell them too, like stop drinking alcohol in your prep, like knock it off.
Yeah.
Like, I always tell them, they always get mad. I'll be like, no alcohol in your prep. Don't be, doing sex capades the night before your meet. Like they always get so mad at me. Like, tell me that? I'm like, because I've been around the block and I've seen some things, and I have had people come with like pulled groins and stuff that like,
Yeah, and it's funny that you said like that's kind of where it all started too. It's like I was like, all right, I'm not going to drink in prep, and then prep's over, and I'm like, I just don't want to drink anymore. Like I don't want to be hungover. It's going to fuck up my training. It's like one, it's like if you want to go to Boston, you go out to a bar, you spend $150, and you wake up feeling like shit the next day, and your training sucks. Like that doesn't sound fun. I don't know why. And it's like once you kind of get past that stage of when you realize like this sucks. Why do you want to do all this bullshit for nothing? There's nothing
exactly.
positive out of it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's become my lifestyle as well too. I'm like, I drink, I don't know, once or twice a year, and it'll be like one or two drinks. Like I think I'll get buzzed maybe once a year, like for somebody's party or like a bachelorette or something crazy. But like even then, I'm like, okay, I need water.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you've maybe run across this yet, but if it could be a hypothetical. If you were to have someone that you saw as a that you took on as a client, and you saw they were making insane progress, like they just had freak genetics and they could be an absolute animal, but they didn't want to be. How would you approach that?
It's tough because it's like you can't force people to do things that they don't want to do. Um, I would definitely try to show them their potential and like show them like, hey, you could be great. Like, here's the things, here's the reasons why, um, your genetics are insane. Like, you probably don't even have to work as hard as somebody else would to be great. But again, powerlifting, if your heart's not in it, it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
So it would just be like, hey, I'm here. If you want to be great, let me know.
Yeah.
Reasons why I think you could be great. Here's why I enjoyed being great.
And it's one of
But
those things that, like, when you do see those people and you see there's still some out there that are still great, and maybe they're not like they don't put their all into it, and you're like, I hate this motherfucker. He's barely doing anything, and he's at the top of the charts every time.
there's always a few of those. But
Yeah, and then kind of on the flip side, what about someone that maybe wants to be great and you just don't see it happening? Is it something where like you kind of obviously you kind of can't just like be like, no, you're gonna suck, like that obviously wouldn't work. But how do you kind of approach in a way that like still lets them work hard, but kind of keeps them in the right frame of mind?
I definitely, I've had people like that, and I've definitely just tried to, continue their training to the best to where they're getting PRs, or I'm reminding them like, hey, that's a rep PR, or your form on that was so good where it didn't break down, and that's progress. Like things like that to keep their mental up. I'm never gonna sugarcoat or like lie or say, yeah, 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 you're gonna squat 2,000, no problem. When they're squatting 500. I'm never going to be that person, and I've had people come with like insane goals where like, I want to squat, I want to pull 500, and they haven't even pulled 400. And I'm like, okay, maybe one day, but it's going to take years of work, years. And, so I like to be realistic, but positive always, and just try to find that they're progressing in those other ways, like your form not breaking down, or your form improving, or rep PRs, or something that should have felt heavy, it didn't feel heavy. Like there's always ways to find the positives in that you are getting stronger, without like it just being a flat out PR.
Yeah, and I think that's important because realistically, that's where a lot of people kind of are going to end up, and that's where you need to, how do I say this, like tread lightly in a way, because you want to keep these people in the sport. You want to grow the sport, and you don't want to shoot people down, and you want to let people have their aspirations, but you also can't let them think that they're going to be the John Hack or the Colton Engelbert when they're totaling 1,500 at, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I mean, you never know. Maybe 10 years of training, all of a sudden something clicks, and they take off. You just don't know. Anything's possible. But like I said, I try to be very realistic. Like, I've been at the top, I've seen what it takes, I've coached a bunch of people. I understand, pretty well how things work. But, you never know. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and for you, I know you mentioned what it takes to get to the top, but what was the hardest thing for you throughout the journey?
um, I don't know. I guess just getting through injuries. I seem to be kind of, I mean, I guess it's normal when you're pushing yourself to the extreme that you're going to get hurt. The injuries, and like keeping a positive mindset. It's so easy to go, oh my God, I'm never going to lift again. I'm screwed. My life is over. I remember like being like that with my knee injury, and like pestering my best friend every day for like 3 months until I was like, oh, hey, I'm squatting again. And he was like, mm-hmm. I think it was definitely just getting through the injuries. The nerve injury by far was the worst. It just took so long, and it still gives me issues. But staying positive, especially when you get injured when you're on top, is pretty heart wrenching. But you know,
Yeah, and I think that it was kind of a trick question in a way, because it's one of those things where if you're a resilient person, like nothing's ever going to be hard because you're just going to do it and you're not going to complain about it. Like I like to bitch and moan, but that's just because I simply like to bitch and moan. I'm still going to do the work, and it's kind of what
yeah,
so.
yeah. I would tell Brandon that all the time too. Like we would laugh about it because I'd be like, he'd be like, "You bitch and moan, but you got it done." And I'm like, "Yeah, you got to bitch to somebody." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." I'm like, "I am a woman."
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things, like it's I just love complaining. It's just a thing that it's kind of in a way it's almost like therapy of like it relieves like the I hate this fucking shit. I don't want to do this shit, but you really do want to do it the whole time. You just want to talk.
Oh yeah, yeah. So when my clients do it to me, I just laugh because I'm like, I know. Just keep going. You'll be fine.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that you're kind of involved in powerlifting now with hosting meets and judging and things. So maybe tell us a little about that. Maybe the feds you work with, some of the meets you do, and kind of what the bigger goals for that are.
Yeah. So I am a meet director with Powerlifting United. I came over with from the WRPF when that whole thing happened. um, I host Quads Giving every year here in San Diego. That was my first meet I ever hosted, and I just love that one because it's like my baby. And then I took over running the meets for Dr. Ashley out in South Bay in LA. So I did the Bummies, Beatdown, and Boo Bash, which this year we're just going to do Bummies because powerlifting is in kind of a decline at this point. So this year, so far, all I have planned is Bummies in June in LA, and then Quads Giving will probably be in December as usual. I'm out here in San Diego, and then I'll ref wherever as needed.
So you mentioned that powerlifting is sort of a decline. I almost see it on the opposite way, just from maybe this area and what like we have the Holy Wars coming up, and like my meet filled up with a bigger cap like 2 months
Yeah.
earlier this year and stuff. So kind of maybe explain to me why you think that from your end.
Yeah, it seemed, I don't know if it's just our area. We've done like ran all the numbers for for Powerlifting United and stuff, but I see it with kind of some other feds. I think the USCPL is probably the only one that's still kicking ass because everyone and their mom wants to do that one for whatever reason. Um, but out here, it seems like it's just there's a meet of every fed every weekend. And what I notice as a meet director, and I get it, it pisses me off, but I understand it. People don't sign up until like 3 weeks out.
I hate it.
Stand because it costs a lot of money to sign up, and I get it,
Yeah,
and we work really hard for our money, and I wish that I didn't have to charge 150 bucks or whatever for meet entry, but honestly, I barely make money on these. Like if I have a very full meet, I'll make a little bit of money, but for the amount of hours, travel, work, whatever I'm doing to put into it, I'm making like $1 an hour.
yeah.
So I do it for the love of the sport because I do want the sport to grow and I want people to love it the way I love it. But I understand that people don't want to wait. They want to wait and see how their prep goes before they sign up, which again, it sucks for their meet director. So people that are listening, seriously, we have to order drug tests if you're tested. We have to order shirts, medals. Like we have to order these things like a month or more in advance. Like best lifter prizes. Like I've had to like last minute overnight ship things that I shouldn't have to pay for because I had like a surge of people sign up. And I'm just like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. So
yeah,
backdrops, banners, decorations, awards, everything. It's like that's why like I'm like, all right, you get till a month out, and that's why I'm so happy it filled up pretty much. I mean, I have like 3 spots left, but like now I know exactly what I need to do now. Now I can just like focus on like what kind of decorations do I want. I can find a cool prize for instead of a shitty $2 medal and stuff like that. So
yeah. What fed do you run?
IPA.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, out here we've got USPA, which I've heard has been not filling up either, which is crazy. The it seems like the USAPL does fine. We've got Powerlifting United. We've got AJ Roberts who runs the APO
Yep.
out here, which his are starting to improve. I usually go and watch just to support. I try to go to every meet I can to support, whether I know people or not. I mean, I always know somebody there, but his are starting to fill up a little more. But obviously, his are more geared for geared lifting, which isn't that big out here either. So it's been interesting. 2023, I was running meets everywhere. People were calling me all over. I was going all up and down California. All my meets were full with waiting lists. Like it was crazy. And then last year was like, you know, so
Yeah.
we've tried to analyze it in all our meetings because I'm the state chair for California. I've been on all these meetings and stuff. We try to analyze everything. We've tried to up our marketing, this, that, everything. And it's just like, and the cost of living out here is obscene.
Yeah.
It doesn't help either for us, especially like most of us work at least 2 jobs. So coupled with that, and then just yeah, like there's a Fed every weekend everywhere. We have such heavily populated cities. It's there's just a lot of factors. So all we can do is keep trying to improve and keep it pushing.
Yeah, and I really do think it might be a regional thing just because over the past couple of years, I feel like New England powerlifting has exploded, and especially in the multiply world, and it's something that like I didn't realize how big it's gotten out here. And I remember AJ himself when I had him on was actually talking about some of the meets out there. We're not getting as many signups, so that's where I'm
Mhm.
kind of getting that from. And I think it's one of those things where like the USAPL is so dominant in the raw world outside of like these untested pro meets, and the kind of shift in tested versus untested, it's a lot of more tested lifters now just because they think it's more fair in a way. And I think that's where it maybe comes from, because equipped lifting is just like the wild west still, and there's obviously some issues with like judging standards and things like that we don't need to get into. But I think that would be my guess, would be like the domination of the tested USAPL in the raw world outside of like you have the American Pro and the Ghost Clash, these untested meets.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Tested has definitely taken off, and that was really interesting to see because when I started, there was one tested meet, like a it was like, "Oh, okay." So we just started untested whether you were on anything or not, So
Yeah.
it's been interesting to see the progression and how things have changed for sure.
And it's kind of funny because I remember when I first got into powerlifting, I didn't realize it was like tested versus untested. I thought it was just, oh, I'm just going up a bunch of guys that are juiced out of their gills and whatever, I'll see what happens. And then I was like, oh, you can do either or. Then kind of just wanted to. Then I started looking at the records and I'm like, all right, I kind of want to maybe go for a couple of these, and then we'll see what happens. But it is kind of crazy how much the tested world has kind of started to take over.
Yeah, which is good. Like we don't, there's a lot of I see a lot of young lifters now, and a lot of when I run these meets, it's a lot of young people, and I love it. Like I'm excited and stuff, and it's like there's no reason for a bunch of 20-some-year-olds, early 20-year-olds to be blasting a bunch of stuff. Like so, it makes sense, and that's cool. But for us, like we offer obviously tested, but it's like they're all just gonna USAPL unless they don't want to use a stiff bar only and deal with all the weird like can't lift your head off the bench, can't self hand off all that stuff,
Stupid
which
ass
is
rules, but yeah.
yeah.
and
So,
and yeah, that's I could make a whole episode just on that. But kind of looking at the bigger picture, I know you mentioned kind of wanting to continue to grow the sport, but maybe outside of that, and kind of either your personal life or just powerlifting holistically, what are some of the goals you have over the next, either this year or the next couple years?
well, my goal when I competed in September, I did AJ Roberts bench wars meet, and Brandon came to handle me at the meet, and I told him I don't want to force feed anymore. I'm losing weight. And he goes, okay. So my goal was because I always competed in the 275 class and I was sitting at like 264 ish. My goal was to go down to 242, which I hit in like 6 weeks. The second I stopped force feeding, I dropped 20 pounds and I was
It
like,
was a
oh.
Shane Haller did the same thing. I think he said he was like 322 and now he's down to like 280.
So my goal is to do a meet at 242. If I can get to 220 without being miserable or losing too much strength, I do want to compete again. I'll probably do AJ's meet again at Olympia, just because I want to support him. He's one of my friends. And it doesn't take me away from the PLU, like doing one of their meets. And I'm the only one running them down here. So, like, where the hell am I going to go?
Yeah.
I might as well go to Olympia because it's fun and everyone else is there. So that's my goal is just to bench there. And, if I can get the Masters all time world record, cool. If not, also cool. I'm at the point where I just need a goal and I need somebody to tell me what to do, which is Brandon. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the gym barely because I'm working so much and I'd rather make money at this point. Um, but I need a goal or I get sidetracked too easily. So that's my goal right now is just to hit a bench only meet this year at a lower body weight. And then when it's not fun anymore or I'm like writhing in pain too much, then I'll figure out the next goal. But as far as that, I just want to run a few meets, ref where I'm needed, continue coaching my people, have them be great, um, and raise my child is really what I'm doing.
Yeah, and has AJ maybe tried to plant the seed of you throwing on a shirt?
We've talked about, and he used to say he wouldn't let me until I benched 400. Um, and now that that's over with, and I've given that dream up, and that's fine. But my thing is, I don't want anyone else to coach me. I don't want to leave Brandon. I love him, and I know he would understand, and we'd still be friends. It would never be an issue. But I just don't want to. I just don't have the maybe down the road, not anytime soon, because people ask me every single day. I got asked the other day, like, when am I going to arm wrestle and strip curl? And I'm like, desire to do that. And I'm at the point in my life where if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've talked about it, but he knows that like I don't train at his gym, so I don't have anyone to train with. And it would be hard for me to get to his gym where when the geared lifters train and stuff like that with my schedule. So, but we've definitely talked about it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. No shame. I was just wanted to see if that thought was there, but I think we
you know,
can kind of wrap things
yeah,
up here. So I'll ask you my final question. If you could give a new lifter, someone going into their first meet, a word of advice, what would you tell them?
have fun. Have fun. There's no cookie cutter, you have to go 9 for 9 or you have to hit these numbers. Learn how it is. Learn how a meet works. Learn how your body feels when you're doing all 3 lifts in one day at, max attempt level. And have fun and use it as fuel for the next one. If you fail something, learn from it. Use it as fuel, move on. Don't blame the refs. If your pause command was 10 minutes long, it's your fault.
Yeah.
So, just
Most of the time. Most of the
yeah,
time.
10% of the time it's your fault. But yeah, just have fun, and it's a stepping stone. Nobody expects you to be great at your first meet, and nobody cares. Everyone's going to cheer for you. Everybody's there for the same thing. We're all trying to get stronger. We're all trying to better ourselves. Just have fun, and if you don't have a coach, get a coach. Get a coach. Like that's unless you really know what you're doing, get a coach.
even if
It,
you
it'll
even if you do, I think everyone needs a coach. Even the best lifters of all time have coaches. So,
exactly.
but I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to come on. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.